Now, I get a lot of questions about my Weedeater bike, and you know, I guess it is a pretty interesting thing. You know, you see a few of them on YouTube, but you know, people asking how I did it. You know, I didn't do the easy route where you just put the motor over the back wheel. I mean, yeah, it's a lot easier, but you lose quite a bit of power because it takes a lot of friction to get it to rub on the wheel without slipping, and that drags a lot. So I did something where it's my keep shit out of the carburetor thing. But yeah, I just put the engine up front in the triangle of frame, and used a couple of chains and a jack shaft to basically run to the back wheels. The first step is you got to find a motor. I think two strokes are easier because you don't have to worry about the oiling system. And you got to make sure that it has one of these types of carburetors that'll run in any position. Also got to make sure that it runs in the right direction so that you don't have a bicycle that moves backwards. Now originally this had a gas tank in here, but I had to get another one off of one of those 31cc upside down ones that suck. I hate those ones. But I took the tank off of that, put it up there just because this tank the original one was leaking. And then you just run a couple of fuel lines, to wherever. So you just got to figure out how you want to mount it up. I mounted it with right here. There's a piece of plate there, bolts up to where the throttle cable used to go in. And there was a couple places there that I could put something up. So I got one of those garden things, those green pieces of angle out of the trash, and another piece of 1/8 thick there, and I bent that into an engine mount. Bolted that up to there. Get a light here. Okay, so that's how that works. That's how that engine mount works. It's one of those things welded to the frame there in a couple places. And there's a third mount right there. And that bolts to, oh, that mount is cracked actually. Looking at it now. That sucks. It's actually cracked now, but hopefully it'll still work and all. But anyway, that mount's up there. And that used to hold on one of the plastic covers over the engine, or over the exhaust. And I just weld that to the frame. Then you got to figure out a way for a kill system. So I just ran a wire. You can see one goes into the engine there. That's a coil. That goes to the coil. The other one is grounded right there, and that runs up to my switch on the handlebars. It's just a little toggle switch. Next thing you need to do is a throttle. I used a gear shifter thing off of one of those mountain bikes, but I took the ratchet out, and that's my throttle. And that runs over to the throttle on the carburetor. Now to connect the bicycle cable to the Weedeater throttle cable, I drilled a hole lengthwise through a bolt and ran both cables through there, and then just put a nut on it. And that connected the two cables. And then I also put another spring on there just to get a little more tension. This crazy thing is because the idle thing broke off the carburetor, so I had to rig something up for to set the idle with. When you're picking your motor, probably should have said this earlier, you need to make sure that you pick one with a clutch. The clutch is what makes it so that the bike can start and stop with the engine still running. If you don't have a clutch, then the engine will shut off every time the bike stops. Plus, the clutch it allows the engine to run it where it makes power at an RPM where it's constantly making power. That way, you can accelerate better. Next thing is the drive. This Weedeater is an older one. It's a McCulloch. What I did was I took a skateboard bearing, which conveniently fit right into the clamping part there, which was metal, not plastic. I found a bolt that fit nice through there, and I ground a little square onto it, onto the end of it, so that it fits into the clutch thing. Then I welded a Z50R Honda Z50R sprocket onto there. So now I have a 420 chain running down to this huge sprocket, which I got off of a trash picked bicycle. And you can see my chain has quite a bit of slack on it. It actually has an entire extra link, well, half the link, so you can fold it over. So I need to buy a half link for that. I had one somewhere, but I lost it. And then you can use, I use the pedal crank as a jack shaft. The thing is that those are usually unsealed bearings, so they take quite a bit more maintenance when they're spinning that fast. So I took the pedals off, and then on the other side, I welded a, well, I started with a 16, and you can see there's another one next to it, and that's a 14. So I welded a 14-tooth sprocket, and that runs with just a regular bicycle chain over to here. How do you get this big sprocket on? This is originally the drive sprocket from this bicycle, and what I did was I just drilled a couple. I made the hole in the middle a lot bigger so it fit around the part of this freewheel thing, and then I put a couple bolts in there, and you can see it freewheels. So that allows the bike to coast without speeding the engine up, and but when the engine is spinning faster than the wheels, it catches and it accelerates the bike. And also off of the trash pick bicycle, got a big ass seat. It's cushy. So that's basically how it all works. And then I have a brake lever here which goes to my front wheels. So all the controls here, go, stop, and ignition, they're all on the right side, so I can one-hand this thing like a boss, and it's cool. This bike, you have to do the gearing calculations to figure out what RPM you want your motor spinning at and what speed it's going to go at. Basically, this runs at 13 rotations of the crank to 1 rotation of the wheel, and that gets me about 15 miles an hour on flat roads and 20 on a little bit of downhill. I took the pedals off and just welded a couple pieces of gas pipe in there, and that's my, that's my footrest. And it runs pretty well, I must say. It's a fun bike. A lot of people look at you and then they look at you again like, whoa, he's not pedaling, there's a noise coming out of the thing. It's kind of funny, and it's a fun bike to have.